Something similar happened in the Battle of the Bulge. A sergeant was guarding a road when a jeep rolled up with a bunch of guys in British uniforms. Having been warned about infiltrators in Allied uniforms, he asked for their identification. But the man in the passenger's seat says, "I'm Bernard Montgomery. You can let us through." Sergeant says, "No, sir. There's been infiltrators. You need to show ID or you'll have to be detained." The British man gets annoyed and after going back and forth a bit, orders his driver to go through the roadblock, at which point the sergeant shoots out his tires and demands they all get out. That's when the sergeant finally got their IDs and found he really had just opened fire on Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery and his aides. The narwhal incident makes for a funny section in Sea Harrier over the Falklands. For context, the Narwhal was an Argentine factory trawler turned spy ship mostly crewed by fishermen. Some Sea Harriers found it while carrying bombs fused for medium-level attacks so they wouldn't go off at low level. Despite that, they managed to disable the trawler by hitting the engine directly with an unexploded 1,000-pound bomb and strafed it with 30mm. The SBS did a textbook assault on the ship, but all they found were some elderly fishermen who practically hugged and thanked them since they were sinking and had no working lifeboat. All but one of the trawler men were found to be genuine fishermen. It was a younger looking man who turned out to be an Argentine naval intelligence officer. In parallel with treating the captured fishermen like kings, they were given sailors' berths and the crew pulled together to donate 100 cigarettes and a porno mag to each man. Invincible also looked after the lieutenant commander of Argentine Naval Intelligence in a manner befitting an officer. He was convinced that having been captured in a war zone in a spy ship and not in uniform, he was destined to be taken to the quarterdeck and shot as a spy. He asked for permission to write a last letter home to his wife and children, and to keep him happy, his request was granted. The captain, J.J. Black, wondered how he was going to convince the man that he wasn't for the chop. Then he had a brainwave. "I know what. We'll send the Roman Catholic padre down to see him. He's sure to believe a man of the cloth." One side of the padre, however, convinced him he was about to be executed. It took him several days of needless worry to realize he was in civilized hands. A visiting officer from the War Office noticed one particular instructor, a middle-aged man, who seemed to have masterly powers. He turned to the accompanying LDV officer. "That one of your people?" "Yes, sir." "Looks as if he's done some soldiering before." "Yes, sir." "Knows his job?" "Yes, sir." "What was he?" "Regimental Sergeant Major Grenadier Guards." On one occasion, a visiting brigadier observed a lengthy row of ribbons on the chest of a private soldier volunteer. He stopped in front of him and said somewhat patronizingly, "Well, my man, you seem to have seen a lot of fighting. Tell me, my man, which campaign did you enjoy most?" The private thought for a moment and then said, "I think, sir, it was the one in which I was second in command to Allenby. In one particular battalion, the explosives officer is a tall, powerful, rosy-cheeked parish minister. He is equally at home with the Old Testament or new grenades, and his parishioners have sometimes been seen to hold their breaths while their spiritual advisor plays about negligently with gun cotton and instantaneous fuse. In the early days, we had orders to stop everybody we saw after dark on the downs and ask for their identity card. On our first night, we came across a couple in a car, and as they were stole away on the approach of our armed party, our leader held them up, demanded their ID cards, and said to the man, "Do you know you have been in a prohibited area?" "No, he hasn't," snapped the girl. One tough little fellow who had lost his son at Dunkirk turned up at every patrol with a Gurkha knife, which as a memento of the last war. This was in a mining village in Lancashire. A farmer claimed he would require no training whatsoever, as having gone out to face a mad bull alone and having killed it with his first shot, he was quite capable of dealing with any Jerry within sight.
Everybody wants my baby, but my baby don't want nobody but me. That's plain as he. My baby loves me. One love, one love, one.